Okay, hi, this is Ron Williams with Mobile Fix Automotive again, coming to you with a quick way to help you guys deal with the timing chain setup on a older Toyota 22R. This engine that I'm working on just happens to be a 1986 Toyota pickup truck, 2.4 liter, which is the 22R. And just for contact information, here is the reference card, guys. I normally keep my phone number. I don't verbally do my phone number. Makes it harder for the computers to find me and sell me a bunch of stuff I don't want. But here's what we got. Okay, the problem, and by the way, you're not going to get to see my face on this video, so that'll probably make you happy. The problem that you have with the 22R timing chain is the fact that the timing cover, which is this piece right here, okay, is actually a wedge fit between the oil pan at the bottom. I'm getting my big old fat hand out of the way so you can see. It's a wedge fit from underneath the cylinder head and the top of the oil pan. And so to be able to properly get the cover back on and sealed the way it needs to be, the book wants you to take the oil pan off the engine. Now this is only going to work if you're taking the cylinder head off and putting a new head gasket on. So this head's already gone into the shop and been resurfaced. This engine blew a head gasket on the #1 cylinder and was pumping water out the exhaust. That has nothing to do with this video. But what the problem is that the tensioner that Toyota uses does not have one of those cool little pull pins that the new engines seem to have. And once the cover's on here, you can't access this. So there's just enough room to get this on, but if you take the sprocket off, then the timing chain pops out and you can't get the tensioner back in once the cover's on. So basically this is set up, and here's what we're going to do, because if you watch this tensioner right here, right now, I'm going to take the upper cam sprocket loose. You see how that popped out? And then this chain slipped right here, okay? This chain has a discolored link on the top, which lines up with a dot on the cam sprocket, and the same thing on the bottom. At the very bottom of this sprocket, there's a single dot that's embedded into the gear that lines up with another one of these links that's a different color than the rest. All these links are black except for the top one and the very bottom one, and those are on this one are kind of a darkish gray. But if you saw how this just pushed in, that's not going to do you any good, because if you go to lift the cylinder head up and get the timing cover in there and then put it back down, you can't pull this back up. It's not going to happen. So basically here's what you do, and this is what I made, okay? This little spacer right here needs to be 1.5 inches long. You can make it out of whatever you want. You can do it out of a piece of wood, tie a string to it. I just happen to have, I made a coat hanger with a nice little finger handle on the end. It's 1.5 inches long. I drilled a hole in it, stuck the coat hanger through it, and then balled it up so that when I go to pull it, the coat hanger won't pull through the hole. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this back down in here. Okay, I'm going to get the timing chain back up on its marks where it's supposed to be, and I'm going to push the timing chain tensioner all the way in. And what that's going to allow me to do, we'll just set this aside for right now. What that's going to allow me to do is get this cam up on this sprocket once I push that in. Okay, see how that's up on there? Now the bolt that holds that in with the gear that drives the distributor is not in this picture right now. Okay, that is this piece right here. This is what drives the distributor. It's also what bolts the cam sprocket on. We're not gonna deal with this piece right now. This piece is out of the picture. Okay, so now that I've pushed the tensioner in down here where my finger's at, and the sprocket is now lined up, I am going to verify that my timing marks are correct. So I'm going to take a mirror right here and a flashlight, and I'm going to look down here, and there's a dot that lines up with the off-colored link on the bottom, so my timing is still on the bottom. And basically on the 22R it's really easy anyway, because the keyways, there's 3 of them in a row, they just point straight up at 12 o'clock. So when you look at the timing chain, you just want to make sure that the discolored link is lined up with the hole. And then you're going to go up around this way and make sure that the hole in the timing sprocket for the camshaft is lined up with that discolored link, which it is. So right now this is pushed up onto the camshaft on the cylinder head. Now, in case I haven't told you, there are no head bolts in the cylinder head right now. The head gasket is on the engine, on the dowel pins, and the head is just sitting on top of this. So what I'm going to do, and you can do this with 2 screwdrivers, 1 on each side of the head. What I use is actually a flat bar. This is actually the cam timing tool for the newer 2.3 Ford motors. And this is actually going to I'm going to lift the head up and slide this in underneath the head gasket very carefully, make sure it's nice and clean, to hold it up so that there's room between the cylinder head and the oil pan to put that cover in. Okay, so the first thing I've got to do is I got to get this tool put in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically take the tool and I'm going to push the tensioner assembly to the left. And I'm going to do this towards the top of the tensioner because I want this to come out really easy. So I'm going to push it, and then I'm just going to set the wedge in there. Okay, and now what it's done is it's pushed this cam tensioner in, but I can still pull it out. So now I can drop the sprocket. See that? I can drop the sprocket, but the chain doesn't move and the tensioner doesn't move. And I can put the sprocket right back up onto the camshaft. That's exactly what we want to have happen. And when the front cover goes on, I can just yank this like that and pull it out. Okay, so let's go through this together and do this the right way the first time, and hopefully this will help you guys out doing the timing chains on these at home. So once again, my timing marks are correct. I've got the head gasket already in the vehicle. On this engine, I've already put the 2 timing cover gaskets on each side. I use copper spray gasket on both sides of this. I actually didn't spray this side of the gasket. I sprayed the inside of the timing cover, so the copper spray for this side of the gasket is actually on the cover. And the only thing I have to do right now before we put the cover on is I've got to lay a bead of silicone across this oil pan, and I need to make sure that there's a bead across the corner in these corners right here. So I've got, this is my favorite stuff to use. This is Ultra Gray. It's made by Permatex. It looks like it has, you know, a little bit of a metallic look to it. It's not just a, well, actually this one doesn't have the metallic look that they used to have, but this is the stuff I use, and I've never had an engine leak as long as you're not applying it over engine oil. But you're just going to take it and you're just going to squeeze a little bead right there on each corner, because when the cover goes in there and squishes in there, you want that to seal. And then you're going to come out and you're going to put a bead right along the center of the front of the oil pan. There's a groove in there that should be cleaned out. And I just dropped my camera. That was pretty cool. Don't see that happen every day. Okay, so I'll try not to hit that with the elbow again. Hope you guys are okay. You had a nice little fall. Alright, so I'm getting my silicone in here. Okay, so once the silicone bead is in there, I usually, just for safety measures, I'll usually take my finger and wipe a little extra right here towards the front, because this is an older engine, and every little bit helps. You don't want to put so much in it that it squeezes into the engine and ends up plugging up your oil pickup screen, but a nice little light coat with your finger on the outer side that doesn't mess with the bead works real well. There's a lot of different silicones you can use. This is just the one I choose. Like I said, I've been doing this 30 years, and out of all the silicones I've used, this is the one that seems to be the best for me. Okay, so I got that in there. So we got our wedge in here for the timing chain tensioner. Our timing chain is set. Once again, I'm not going to go over all that. I've already said it over and over again. Here's what we're going to do to make this cover fit. We're going to drop this camshaft sprocket down in there. It's not going to fall into the engine because the guides are going to prevent it. But what it is going to do, and I'm going to take this and wipe off any dust and dirt, rocks that might possibly be on that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reach under here. Let me move my arm out of the way first. I'm going to reach underneath the front of the cylinder head, and I'm going to grab the head gasket and the cylinder head, not just the head, and I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to take the flat bar. You can do this with 2 screwdrivers if you want, and I'm going to set it down. And what I've just done is that flat bar is 1/4 of an inch thick, so I've just given myself 1/4 of an inch of space to be able to put this cover in. Okay, so now I'm going to take this cover, and I'm going to try to stay as high as I can not to mess up the silicone bead. And I'm going to slide this cover on here. And make sure it lines up with my dowels. There's 2 dowels on the front of the engine. Probably should have pointed them out to you, but I'm sure you guys, if you're able to even do this job, you're smart enough to know that there's dowel pins. They look just like this one right here and this one right here that are for the oil pump assembly. Okay, and once that's done, there's a bolt that goes in through the back on this timing cover. It's a little 12mm head. It's not a 12mm size for the threads. It's 12mm on the head of the bolt. And then there's this one right here, which is 14mm. Not all these holes on the front are going to take a bolt, because there's brackets and stuff that have to go on here. Especially the one that goes around here, because I got to get this pipe right here for the water line. I have to get that on. But right now what I'm trying to do is just get the cover cinched down, so that I can make sure that the silicone itself doesn't get messed up. Now when you do this, remember, once you get this cover on, the 2 bolts that you need to work with first are the 2 that come up through the oil pan. And the reason for that is right now the oil pan hole for those 2 bolts, there's 1 bolt here, 1 bolt here, right underneath that comes straight up from the bottom. If you let that silicone dry, it is a nightmare to get those 2 bolts in. So you want to do those while the silicone is still wet. Now I'm going to get them started right now, because I've already got the cover pretty much pinned. Drop the first one. We'll do that a few times. If you can't get the bolts to start, then there's a pretty good chance that the cover is not pushed in all the way. And that's what mine's doing right now. So instead of fighting those bolts and wasting precious camera time, we are going to finish setting this timing chain up. Okay, so now the timing cover is on. I am going to lift up the cylinder head and lightly slide this out and drop that cylinder head back down. Okay, now I'm going to grab this sprocket and carefully pull it up and push it back onto the camshaft. And I'm going to verify that my timing mark is still there. There's the hole, there's the link. Okay. Now I've got a bolt in the back here that's already sucking that cover back down. And just for a tester, I am going to make sure this hole right here doesn't actually get used until the bracket for the air conditioner goes back on, but I'm going to use it in this video to cinch this cover in, just so I can get those 2 bolts underneath the oil pan in, because they have to get cinched down. Yep, it definitely sucked it in. Okay, so now I need to see if I can find a bolt long enough to get this one right here. Should have checked that before I started shooting the video, but I didn't. That one's too long. All I need to do is just cinch it in, and then I can pull it out. And bear with me, because instead of pausing the video, which this GoPro doesn't seem to like to do, let's see if I can get these 2 bolts started again. Normally when I'm doing this, I just put it up in the air and do it from the bottom. So I'm kind of working blind. Okay. So with those 2 bolts in there,